Hello, friends. Here we are. It's episode 3, I think, of the Big Black Bear podcast. Before I introduce my wonderful guest, I just want to say thank you to Chris at Chatty Geek HD on X, formerly known as Twitter, for his very lovely comment. Which basically said, another podcast added to the subscriptions. The first episode was a wonderful listen, and I was totally mesmerised by the authenticity and genuineness of the host and guest. I think great things are going to come from this show. So thank you, Chris. I think in the future, you're going to be a guest as well. So I appreciate that, and thank you for everybody that's been listening so far. My guest this week is a long-term friend, someone that I love dearly. And I've just found out is now a communication alchemist, and I'm sure she's going to tell me exactly what that means. It's Loz. Hello, Loz. How you doing?
Hello, my beautiful friend.
And how are you? I feel like the way that we both sort of, I mean, you look beautiful as you always do, but I feel like we're both on our ass at the moment.
That's very kind. That's very kind. So, the reason why I have got not a scrap of makeup on and I haven't even dried my hair yet is because I thought to myself, I got up this morning, I was like, oh, I know I've got this podcast at 9. And on days like today and for several weeks, as you know, I've been really low. And on a day like today, it's a miracle that I can even shower. So the fact that I'm up and showered, that's a success.
Yeah.
That I've got this far. I would never normally dream of doing something like this with no makeup on and not drying my hair. But I think it's important because the reason I've agreed to do this is because if this helps even just one person to feel more seen and to feel less alone, then it's worth doing, isn't it? And I know, and I'm sure that there are many people who are just like me, who find it really hard to just get ready in the mornings and to even have a shower.
Yeah.
Because this is the first time I've had a shower in 5 days. I can't believe I'm like already admitting this 2-3 minutes in. This is the first time I've showered in about 5 days.
Bombshell.
So, this is a big thing for me, and me coming onto podcast without dry hair is like, I'm sure a lot of people can relate. So,
well, I think because as long as I've known you, which has been 10 years now, I think it's got to be, because it was about 10
years.
It was the first Phoenix Festival in the town that we live in, and that was where we met, wasn't it? That was where you were doing your Loz Media, which funnily sort of like the circle has returned, and you're now doing Loz Media again.
Yes, literally just launched yesterday.
Well, there you go. See, but the one thing I can remember was, and I'm sure it's how people think when they meet me, is because, and this is something, I'm sorry all the people that have listened to all the episodes so far, but I will keep going on about the happy mask, is the fact that when you're out and like you're doing the stuff you do, I do the stuff I do, you've got to perform. If you're not feeling great, you've still got to put that happy mask on, and you've got to be projecting yourself.
Yeah.
So when you're doing those kind of jobs, whether it's in media or singing or podcasting, you cannot go out there with a face like a slapped ass. You've got to go out there, hey, how you doing, and performing all the time. Now, I don't know how you felt that day that we first met out in the field, out in the Abbey in Cirencester, but I can always remember being drawn just by your energy. And it was weird, sat on that hay bale. I'll always remember sitting on that hay bale, and it was almost, well, not that I ever remember, well, I can never remember being at school and asking anybody for a date, because I never did that until a very, very long time. But sitting there thinking, I want to talk to this lady. And I think you ended up talking to us first. You kind of came and introduced, because you're very forward when you come to things like that, aren't you? Now, how much of that percentage-wise is real, and how much of that is the happy mask putting on a performance?
That's so interesting, because I don't remember that.
Of course, why would you? Why would you remember something as insignificant as that?
No, I was going to go on to it. So I have quite a poor memory, and I've learned through doing lots and lots of work on myself and lots of healing that a poor memory is a way of my body helping myself. So I've blocked out quite a few like stressful or traumatizing memories from my past, and that day particularly was quite difficult for me because I was going out into the world and I was being Loz Media and I was filming that particular event.
Yeah.
And I felt really vulnerable. So my dad had passed away, I think, about a year beforehand. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was absolutely winging it. And I was having to pretend like I knew what I was doing. And I was having to pretend like Loz Media was bigger than it was, and it wasn't just me. And so I think when I go into that mode that you saw me in, I was very much on the kind of almost manic. I was probably quite manic that day, like pretending to be really hyper confident, pretending to know what I was doing, pretending that speaking to strangers was completely normal to me. And actually, in truth, my genuine self is far more introverted than that. I'm far happier being at home. I'm far happier just drawing the curtains and it just being me and my husband and our dog, and that's it. And that's my safety.
Yeah.
That's my safety zone. And it's and people will be listening to this would be really shocked to hear that I go on BBC Breakfast sometimes. I'm often on radio stations across the nation talking about personal finances and things. And what you hear is a very confident, knowledgeable person who, behind the camera and behind the microphone, has got her stomach in knots and who is just performing. That's all I'm doing, is I've learned how to perform really, really well. So coming on today and having half of that mask stripped off, which would be hair and makeup and clothes and all that kind of stuff, and I'm sat here in a fleece and some leggings. I'm feeling quite vulnerable even now just talking to you, because I'm like, oh, this feels really exposing. But I think it's really important for people to realize that people are always presenting in different ways to how they feel. And I think that that's a bit of a phenomena, in that because of social media and everything, we've all learned to do that. And I think it's part of the problem. That's why I decided not to put my makeup on today and dry my hair, because I'm like, if I do that, as part of the problem, because it's not really what I want to do and it's not really how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So let's be a bit more honest about how we're feeling, so that people don't think, oh, I can't be like that. Where's she getting the energy from to do that? Like, do you know what I mean?
Totally. And I totally relate, because the thing is, I can remember that day thinking, and I never for 1 minute thought that you were putting an act on. I thought, wow, this is what I class as, this is a successful businesswoman. This is someone that knows exactly what she's doing. I was impressed, because I thought, wow, Loz Media, if she's got this gig where she's filming this festival, there's obviously something about her. So that whole thing where you're saying you're performing, you did it to a T. You absolutely perfect, because I would never have thought for 1 second, the same way as if someone sees me up there singing, they think I'm this super ultra confident person, and I'm the least confident person that I know. But that guy up there is the confident person. Now, I don't necessarily get nervous about singing. I very rarely do. But I've always, I said in the last episode to Charlotte, the psychotherapist, that I've always wanted to be that person. And I feel sorry for the family and my friends who see the shitty side of me, because that's not the person that a lot of people are drawn to. So it's interesting when you said all that about that person that was there. And it's also interesting when you say about the whole fact that you've now come back to that whole media thing, but you're quite happy with the fact that you can, because again, social media is pretty much 99% all about image. Yeah. It's about how you portray yourself. And the majority of people that are on social media and are, in quotes, successful in social media, they're putting on a performance every single day to get clicks.
Yeah, they
so
do.
How do you differentiate that when that's now it's now going to be your job?
So my new job, so it won't be social media. So
right.
Social media is something that I'm trying to actually come off, to be honest with you, because it is so fake. And it's a lot about vanity metrics, and all the really successful influencers spend so much of their time talking about how to do this, how to become this, how to, and they're spending so much time creating that content, they're not actually doing a lot of what they pretend to be really good at. And I think that that's something that we all have to remember, is that these beautiful reels that we see of people on holiday, or these beautiful reels that we see of people doing their makeup and all that kind of stuff, that takes time to make those types of videos. It takes hours, literally hours. So although they present like, oh, this is a day in a life of, no, it's not real. We're not seeing the real. And I think a lot more influencers are starting to actually go, and this is the real life. And I follow some people on social media who are very, very honest like that. They go, this is it. And then they pan the camera around and their room is an absolute tip. And they're like, this is just the little bit that we like let you see. And it's definitely helping me to realize, like, I shouldn't be comparing myself to these people. Now, in terms of this Loz Media, Jen, it's really interesting having this conversation today of all days, because I founded Loz Media as a limited company in 2012 when I was 29, nearly 30, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't really have any business experience. I was terrible with my finances, and the business was an absolute disaster. And I'm going to own that now, because I haven't admitted that really to anybody. But 10 years ago, I had a disaster, and I was very nearly declared bankrupt because I had a business account and I hadn't paid into it for a long time. And basically, my bank turned around to me and were like, we're going to need to, dissolve your accounts. And it was going to mean 7 years of being bankrupt, which is alarming for your credit score. You can't get a mortgage and all these different things.
Yeah.
And I had to literally beg friends and family to help me out of that situation. And I think I was on like literally a whisker of the bank saying, right, you're bankrupt. Fortunately, I managed to borrow enough money to pay off what I owed. And I was very fortunate as well in that I got a job quite soon after all of that kicked off, sort of through a friend of a friend, really, who'd seen Loz Media, knew I did lots of the PR and all the rest of it, and got me a job sort of doing digital marketing in Bristol. And I was then employed, and slowly but surely over the past 10 years, I've been clawing back my confidence, because it really left me very unconfident. And then bizarrely, I got the gig working for a comparison site, and I became a genuine, true personal finance expert, in that I was writing about it every day. I was understanding it. I was researching it all of the time. That was my job to do. And then slowly but surely, the radio and the TV gigs started coming, because I was able to break down finances in a way that made sense for people. And that's kind of where by accident, my career's gone in the past sort of 6-7 years, has been, doing PR and digital marketing for financial services. And I believe the reason I'm so good at it, and the reason that the BBC and people keep coming knocking at my door, is because I've got lived experience of what it feels like to be nearly made bankrupt, to have literally no money. I can't explain how little money I had. I had so much debt. Every time my car would break down, because I was driving around an absolute dump of a car, I would panic and my body would go into flight mode, because I couldn't afford to get it fixed. And without the car, because I lived so rurally, I wasn't going to be able to get to any of the appointments that I'd booked. And it was just a smorgasbord of shit. It was a shower of shit. And and I didn't feel like I could admit that I was failing to anybody. And I didn't get any help from anybody. I just struggled and struggled and struggled through. So I think that's why I've become really good at talking about finances, because I know what people go through, and I know the kind of mental health it can take and the toll it can take on somebody. So fast forward 10 years, I've been doing this for a long time now, and I've just got to a point where I'm like, I need to start being a bit more true to myself. I've always fallen into jobs. I've always kind of just done what's come up.
Yeah.
And the financial gig, as I say, it came by accident. And although I do love it, there are other things I want to explore now. So I've decided to take on a lot of my client work and go freelance, and I'm relaunching Loz Media as of yesterday, literally. And that's not why I'm doing this podcast. It's not like a plug for Loz Media. Please don't think it is. This is far more about
we will put the link in the show notes, though, obviously.
This is far more about me going, look, you know what, like, I have suffered from crippling anxiety in the last 6 weeks, to the point where, and I haven't told you this yet, so this will be an interesting reaction that you'll have. On Sunday, I was treated for a TIA, which is a mini stroke. I was in a car with my husband. We were driving to London, and we still don't know what it is. It wasn't a mini stroke, but it was like a seizure. And I'm having an MRI on Wednesday, and I'm having some bloods done to try and work out what it was. But when the paramedics picked me up, they treated me for a TIA because that's what it looked like. My speech went very slurred. I believe that it was a combination of insomnia from the last 6 weeks and crippling anxiety from relaunching Loz Media, because the body doesn't forget.
Yeah,
I believe the body is remembering what happened to me 10 years ago, and it is panicked and it is frightened and it's not sleeping. And that we know that combination of not sleeping, because I've literally been sort of going on about 2 or 3 hours a night for 6 weeks, combination of not sleeping and anxiety can actually create the body to do some very funny things. And I think that's what's happened on Sunday. So this podcast couldn't come at a more timely time, really, because I've had a physical reaction to what's going on in my brain.
To me, something like it's got to be called Loz Media, obviously, but does that become a trigger in regards to your anxiety, that name, not necessarily what you're going to do, but does that name become a bit of a trigger in causing the anxiety because of the past?
Possibly. And a good friend of mine actually said, why don't you rename it, do something else? And I think there's part of me is because Loz is my name, know, call me Loz, you call me Loz, that's how you introduced me to it. And there's part of my identity that's wrapped up in that business. And I am Loz Media. So there's also part of me that wants to take that girl from 10 years ago who was frightened and go, we can do this. This is 10 years on now. You're capable. And I want to help her see that she's not her mistakes, and that I've got 10 years more experience now. I know what I'm doing financially now. I would never allow myself to get to those places I was 10 years ago, because I understand finance so much better now. I understand how it works. I can play the system better. I get that I need to save for my tax bill, all of those things that I wasn't doing before. I used to have HMRC letters land on my doorstep, and I'd freeze because I was so frightened of what they were planning on doing. And now I lean into it. Now I log into my HMRC. I understand it. I'm like, right, okay, I've got to do this by this. I put my dates in my diary. I've got so much more experience now that I want to prove, not to anybody else, but to myself, that this can be a success. And this doesn't have to be like a crippling, scary thing anymore. And I think that it's really important for me to keep it as Loz Media, because it's about going, okay, you don't grow from success. You grow from failure. And it's really important to go, okay, that, if I was just all just success, I wouldn't have grown as a person. I wouldn't have flourished. From my failures, that's why I've got better at doing things. So I'm hoping, already I felt it. I spent the day yesterday doing loads of admin, getting my website sorted, sorting out loads of stuff. And already I'm like, actually, this is really exciting. I don't know why I've been so anxious in the last 6 weeks. I'm so much better than I was 10 years ago. So that's why I've decided to keep it.
Yeah. I've been noticing on since setting up the Big Black Bear Twitter and stuff, I'm getting a lot of mental health memes and things, and I get very cynical about them because they're all just words. Do you know what I mean? Even though when I read some of them, I go, yeah, that kind of makes sense. In regards to one of them was something about, even if you get up and you make your bed and you have a shower, then today you've won. And and I'm sure you felt this over the last few weeks. I felt over the last couple of weeks that it seems to me like that means nothing. You know, I feel like I'm failing every day because I'm letting people down. You know, I've not been at work for a week, so I've let everybody at work down. I'm letting family down. I had to cancel some singing today, so I've let those people down, and all of those layers just sort of pat on top of each other and becomes a pressure that I think when you're in the middle of the depression is very, very hard to sort of wipe away. When you've been in the middle, and you can answer this or you can't, but when you've been in the middle of what you've been going through, is there a slice of your brain that is telling you, don't worry, everything will be, you will get through this? Because that's the only thing that I've kind of clung to for the last week or so, is that my depressions always seem to be a dip. They always seem to be like, I think we've spoken before about the roller coaster of life, that we would rather both be on a roller coaster where you have the ups and the really big highs, but with the big highs, you have to deal with the downs, instead of some people love being on the carousel and just going round and round and round, and they love that, and you know they know exactly where they are.
Yeah.
Have you had that little sliver in your mind thinking, don't worry, everything is going to be fine, everything's going to be great? Or when you're in the middle of that the big black bear, can you not see that chink of light?
I've got much better, and I've had to really learn how to tell myself that it's going to be all right, and you know that you can get through this.
But do you believe yourself? That's the thing, because I don't believe myself when I tell me, don't worry, it's going to be all right.
Right in the midst of it, probably not. No, it's really hard when you wake up at 1 a.m. and everything's dark and everything's silent and your partner's fast asleep and you feel like that you're completely alone in the world, and you start worrying and catastrophizing about all the things that you haven't done, and you start to beat yourself up because you haven't done this and you haven't done that, and why can't you, and why can't you fold your clothes and iron your clothes? Why is that so hard for me? Why is that so difficult for me to clean my house? Everyone else seems to be able to do it so easy. That's really hard, and you start to just completely blame yourself, and you feel like you're not enough, and that you're not good enough, and that you're crap, and that, you know, you do start to beat yourself up in those really, really dark moments. But what I'm starting to learn is that those small habits that you were talking about, like making your bed, like drinking a glass of water in the morning, like having a shower, are the building blocks of helping yourself. So now what I do in those moments where I'm catastrophizing, especially in the middle of the night, I take some deep breaths. And these are all things that I haven't come up with, these strategies, by the way. These are things I've been reading about, and I'm on that journey.
Yeah.
I take some really deep breaths to regulate my body, because what's going on in your head, your whole body is having like reactions to. So I take some deep breaths because they really help to calm, bring my heart rate back down, to unclench all my muscles. And I tell myself that I am loved. And I know that sounds really fluffy and like lots of unicorns flying around the place, but I have to tell myself, I am loved. You are safe. I am loved. You are safe. It's like a little mantra. And the other thing I've started to do when I've got insomnia really, really badly, and my thoughts are racing like that, is I try to disrupt my thoughts by asking myself, what is your next thought going to be? Because the minute you ask yourself that, it's like a bit meta. You're like, I don't know, what is my next thought going to be? And it sort of just disrupts that cycling of bad thoughts. And you can do it during the day. I find myself, when I'm starting to catastrophize about something in the day, I just go, right, what's my next thought going to be? And I try to, at the moment, and it really has been working, believe it or not, despite the fact I've had this seizure on Sunday, I've tried to disrupt those thoughts as much as I can and observe them. And observe what's happening to my body when I'm having them as well, and just writing down what's happening. Or my jaw is clenched, my heart is racing, I feel hot in my face, my hands and feet are sweating, to understand if it's a flight or fight mode I'm going into. And also just giving myself a little bit of like habits. So I've also read this really good book this year called The Atomic Habits, which has all been about just creating some really mundane everyday habits. Because when you start to keep those habits for yourself, you build a loving discipline for yourself, and you start to become that person that looks after yourself and loves yourself. And often I'm not saying this is for everybody, because everybody's got different trauma for different things. My trauma comes from a lot from my childhood. From the outside, we had a lovely childhood. And when I first went to a therapist, I said, when she said, what was your child like? I was like, it was great. It was lovely, which is always a red flag, apparently, for a therapist. She went, okay, let's delve into that a little bit. And not to say that, you know, there was, you know, anything big or horrible that happened in my childhood, but I wasn't loved in the way that I needed to be loved. And I am learning how to give myself that love that I didn't get. And, you know, it sounds really cheesy. Oh, you've got to love yourself before you can love anyone else. It's not really about a narcissistic type of love. It's about just being there for yourself and learning how to help yourself when you're having these spiraling thoughts, and when you're deep in the darkest depression, or when you're having so much anxiety that you're having seizures. You know, you know how to support yourself out of those moments, and just little tiny habits do start to give yourself confidence that you are good enough.
Yeah.
To be that person for yourself. If that does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does make sense. I mean, it's weird because when I spoke to Charlotte in the last episode, the psychotherapist, I said that exact same thing. I said I can't think of anything in my childhood that I can. I was very lucky. I had a wonderfully loving family. I'm sure if though a psychotherapist came and picked the bones out of it, there would be stuff that would go, that's interesting you said that, because do you know what I mean? It would end up being something I thought, well, I didn't even think of that as being something that would make me the person that I am now. Do you know what I mean? I just look back and think, well, there wasn't anything bad in my childhood. It was all good. Before we talk about anything else, I got to ask you again about Communication Alchemist. That was what you said that you I want to say
came up with yesterday.
Yeah, I wanted to get, before I forget about it and we say goodbye and everything. I just wanted to get that. Where does that come from, and what made you think of that? Because that's what you're classing yourself as. Yeah, that's what your job title.
The reason I came up with that was because on my website I had to put about. And it was asking me, like, in a really few words, what do you do? And I was like, oh, that's really hard, because I do PR, and I'm also a journalist, and I also do broadcasts, and I do internal communications, I do external communications, I do crisis comms, I do link building for people, I do digital PR, I do marketing. And I thought, I can't put all of that on. I need to just be able to explain what I do in one word. And I'm also a very creative writer, as you well know, and I love doing podcasts. So there's lots and lots of facets of me. But the one thing that all of those things come under the umbrella of is communication. And I think that the Alchemist part just came about because all those things are quite hybrid. And it's a bit like chemistry. If you think of the Alchemist bar, you know, when they're putting those amazing cocktails together, there's a science behind it. But what you get is this amazing kind of phenomenal drink at the end of it. I just thought, like, it's a bit like a chemist. I'm putting all of these things together, little dollops of social media, dollops of broadcast, a bit of journalism in me, the creative side of me, also the SEO part side of me, and all the digital marketing side of me. And what comes out of it is some beautiful prose and lovely words, either said, spoken, or filmed, or however you want to do it. And that will helpfully support your business or your brand or your personal brand or whoever you want to be, to get some results out of the end of that, whether that's to be recognized, whether that's to, you know, get more customers or to gain more trust, however that looks. So that's where that came from, because I was like, I just don't know how to describe myself in 2 words. And I wanted 2 words. And once upon a time it was Loz Media, because I was the media in Loz, and now I'm just Laura Rettie trading as Loz Media, and what I do is I'm the Communication Alchemist.
You're going to trademark that, you're going to copyright that, so you need to make sure that nobody else gets.
Shouldn't I did Google it, there isn't anyone else trading as a Communications Alchemist. So what I will say, and I would just want to make this point, because a lot of people would look at my career and go, oh, but you've done so well and you're really successful, and, you know, you've been on the telly and all the rest of it. And I just want to normalize not thriving. I think it's really, really important, because we are so conditioned these days to optimize everything we do. We've got to, you know, perfect it. We've got to be great. We've got to get so many followers. We've got to get so many likes. We've got to be loved. And actually, we're not always meant to feel good. And I think that's the other thing. We're all striving to feel good all the time. And it's all right to not feel okay all of the time. It's like the saying, it's okay not to be okay. Like, it's okay to feel down. It's okay to want to isolate. It's okay to grieve. And I think as human beings, we are seasonal. And at the moment, I'm actually, although I'm launching a new business, I'm actually going into hibernation. I can feel myself doing it. And I want to do that because sometimes periods of being away from the world and being away from social media and slowing down and being still, that's when my most creative side of me comes out, because it's allowed to. And I just need to fall in love with being a bit bored, because boredom is the birthplace of art for me personally. So I just need to just take a step down from things for a little bit. And it's partly why I'm going freelance rather than employed. Yeah. I just want to hibernate for a little bit and just do my thing. And at the end of it, come out and flourish. I want to do some more studies. I'm doing a diploma in broadcast journalism at the moment. And I just want to kind of, just normalize not thriving. It's okay not to always be on. And I think, Pavo, you are somebody who I externally see as somebody who's always thriving, always pushing, always launching a new podcast, always out there singing, always on. And when you're out in the world, you, just like you explained how you felt when you met me, I remember, I don't remember the exact, I don't remember sitting on the hay bale when I met you, but I remember seeing somebody who was wearing a big, loud Hawaiian shirt, who was fuller than life, who was really positive. And the thing that you are brilliant at is you are phenomenal at listening to people and then asking the right questions. And you are phenomenal at championing other people. And it's one of the reasons I think you're so loved, is because you champion so many people and you push people into the limelight, and you want to know more, and you make people feel amazing. You honestly do. You have the ability to make people feel phenomenal, and it's really hard to be a friend of yours sometimes, because I just wish you could do that for yourself better. And it's something that you just need to prioritize, is that maybe for a moment you don't champion as many people and you don't do as much of all of that for other people, and you just do that for yourself. Just take a bit of time out to do that for yourself. And it's easier said than done. Like, I can tell you to do that, of course, but I know how really fucking hard that is to do.
I'll tell you what, that is probably the nicest bollocking I've ever had in my life. I have to say, it's the first time I've had a bollocking where I was nearly happy cried than sad cried. So that was lovely. Right, I got one more question for you, but in two parts, okay?
Okay.
If you were able to go back in time and sit on that hay bale, like I did, with Loz from 2013, what would you say to her?
That's really hard.
I know, and I don't want to upset you, but knowing what you know now, what would you say to her?
It's going to be okay.
Oh, bless your heart, Lars. I'm sorry.
I just take her and I give her a big hug, and I just say, it's going to be okay. You're going to go through shit, and you're going to go through even more shit and even more shit, but you're going to come out of it, and you're going to heal, and you're going to be the one. You're not going to get rescued. Nobody's going to rescue you, because I think I was looking for someone who's going to come along and rescue me, and I did that for a long time, search for somebody who's going to rescue me, and that's not going to happen.
No,
but you're gonna fight, and you're gonna survive, and you're going to be all right. Because even though I've had a really shitty 6 weeks, God, compared to 10 years ago, I'm in a much, much, much better place. I've got my house now, and I've got my career now, and I'm not in tons of debt anymore. And I've made some really fucking good life decisions. And I just want to reassure her that she's capable of all those things.
That's lovely. And the final question, which is linked to that, if you had a knock on the door right now, and Loz from 10 years from now came and saw you, what would you hope she'd say to you?
That you fucking smashed it, girl.
Yeah.
She's proud of the resilience that I've had to just keep going, even when it's been really hard at times, when you've grieved all the people you've lost and all the people that you've loved that have unfortunately no longer in the world. And for all those years in your 20s when you were taken advantage of by men, that you learned that wasn't your fault, that was okay, that you blamed yourself a lot for all of that shit. It wasn't your fault. And proud of you for recognizing that you needed to work on yourself. And it's something I've been doing for a good year now. It's been healing and learning strategies, coping strategies to help myself. And a lot of that's been through books. Like I've been reading amazing books by Dr. Nicole LaPerera, who is phenomenal. She's on Instagram as the holistic psychologist. She's been a huge help. The Atomic Habits book I'm reading. I'm just about to start a book called The Body Remembers. Like, just read about this stuff. It's, back in the day, we used to take the piss out of the self-help section in bookstores. Fucking get in there and stay in there and read those books, because they have helped me so much. Because therapy will also help you. Get some therapy. Like, I've had some therapy, and it was, my life changed after I had that first round of therapy in 2018. And I'm still working on myself now. It takes time. There is no, yes, you can take antidepressants and anti-anxiety and all the rest of it. And yes, they can make you feel a lot better, and they can help you on those first few ladder and those steps. But ultimately, to sustain that over a long period of time, you also need to prioritize it, just like you would a job. It is your job to help yourself. And reading and learning how to do that, and people heal in different ways. You're gonna, it sucks. I know it sucks, and I know that people go, but why should I? Other people don't have to. But unfortunately, my loves, that's the hand you're dealt with. Yeah.
Well, all I can say is I'm so thankful to that hay bale in 2013 that I sat and met you. I love you dearly, Loz. I love you very, very dearly. I really do. And I can't believe this is now like 2 episodes with 2 friends, and they both cried. I feel like this is how it's going to be for the rest of this podcast. It's going to be, and so I apologise for making you cry, Loz. I hope it maybe made you feel a little bit better.
Yeah, I don't think crying is a bad thing.
I don't think it is.
It's the body's way of releasing a lot of those difficult emotions.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we all need to lean into. People go, oh no, stop. And actually, I'm like, no, let yourself cry. It's really healthy to cry. So I don't think you should apologize for making your guests cry, because we're talking about things that are emotions and feelings that are really hard. And I think that what you're doing in this podcast is well overdue. I think we've all needed to sit down and have these really hard conversations, and everyone's different, and some people might relate to my story and other people might not, and that's okay too. There are people who have had some really horrific trauma happened where only medicine is going to help, and I get that too. There is so many, like, mental health is so nuanced, isn't it? But I just thank you, Pavo, for even starting this podcast, because it's not easy. It's a very vulnerable place for you to be, and I'm just feel really proud of you, really.
Oh, bless you.
And I love you very much.
I love you very much. Indeed, I do. And the link for Loz Media will be in the show notes. This is not a paid promotion. It's just the stars aligned, didn't they? The stars aligned. Before we say goodbye, if you want to get in touch, then please email bigblackbearpod@gmail.com. Right, now I've got to get this right. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Big Black Bear Podcast. but we're on X, formerly known as Twitter, on Big Black Bear Pod. I can't remember why I did that. I honestly can't remember. If you do happen to want to speak to somebody, then I have got the phone line for Samaritans. In the UK is 116-123, and in the USA is 1-800-273-TALK. So if you need to speak to somebody right now, then they're the numbers you need. Loz, once again, thank you so much, and hopefully this won't be the last time you'll come on the pod, and hopefully it won't be the last time we do a podcast together, because I'm sure somewhere down the line there's a podcast with our name on it that we'll do together.
100%. I fully believe that.
I fully believe that as well, because I love doing podcasts. What more can we find? Something, there's got to be something out there we can do one about.
Yeah, for sure, and it brings us both joy, so we need to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Loz, and bye, friends.
You're welcome.